Listen now, dear ones, and I shall tell you a story of long, long ago, of 1700 years or more in a land of ice and snow. A man wrapped up in coat and hat, his pockets all full with toys. He wandered the mountains, the woods and the plains, leaving gifts for the girls and boys. He'd return home at night, cold and tired, to his small and cold mountainside shed. He'd turn out the lights, he'd wrap up warm and fall fast asleep in his bed. Unknown to him, he was known of by many, over valley, hill and mere, and whilst walking one night his pilgrimage made, he happened upon a deer. The deer stood still and watched him. He stood still and watched the deer back. What he could see upon the deer's head, a small winter fairy sat. The man took a step, the ice below broke, he fell through the hole and cried for help from the deer, for she and the fairy just watched as the old man died. The fairy waited and watched for the man, and then flew in a trice. He found the man sinking, he pulled him up and laid him onto the ice. The fairy gave the man his breath, as much as he could dare. The man awoke suddenly, and then rose up into the icy air. A strange thing happened at this point. The man started shining with light. His figure, it bloated, his clothes altered shape, and he gained the power of flight. The man was so happy and grateful, but the fairy was not done with his fate. He looked up at the deer, still stood on the hill, and conjured another 8. He turned to the shed and stared at it hard. It too began to shine bold. It rose up in the air, spun once as it turned to a grotto of green, red and gold. The fairy, he turned to the man and said, "Now you can make more toys, with more room to work and some help to deliver them to all the girls and boys." The fairy then vanished in a blink of an eye. The deer on the hill did so too. The 8 that were left looked down at the man, and the old man knew just what to do. The jolly man flew through the air at speed, his deer with reins of red. His sleigh was full of toys to give in the long cold night ahead. He travelled the skies through space and time, delivering the toys that he'd made. Down chimneys on rooftops so as not to wake the children asleep. All through the centuries the old man toiled merrily, year after year after year. Not growing old, but with everlasting life, that much has now become clear. He thought of the fairy, the deer, and that night, and returned back north at dawn. When he returned home, he found that first deer looking sad and all forlorn. The deer, you see, had been a prisoner now escaped. Her captor, the fairy who'd saved the man's life, was hunting her down, filled with hate. The fairy, you see, was a mean one, who'd captured the deer out of spite, and kept her as prisoner, to taunt and to scold, and tortured her all day and night. The man and the deer, now they waited. The deer tracks had been left in the snow. The fairy turned and looked at his prey as the old man started to glow. The old man looked straight at the fairy, and knew that the fairy was bad. But the fairy was bad for a reason, he thought, and this made the old jolly man sad. He looked at the fairy and glowed more, as though he was showing his soul. The fairy couldn't cope with the guilt and the shame, and his body simply turned into coal. Now listen now, young ones, as I finish my tale, set in this land of ice. This jolly old man keeps a list, you see, of who's been naughty or nice. The nice are rewarded with toys and games. The naughty ones just missed the point. There's fun and laughter for those who behave, and coal for those who disappoint.